Got every button imaginable.
As I was starting this episode, I decided why not just go out and buy a VHS camera and shoot the monologue for this episode on it. That's what I'm doing. When I was a kid, I loved Whitney Houston. My mom would throw a VHS copy of The Bodyguard into the VCR and it would come out of her 13.5-inch television. Now, I don't remember that, but it's all there on VHS. And it got me thinking, if anything had happened to this VHS in the last 24 years, I wouldn't have been able to see that memory. So I started digitizing all the VHS that I could find. And what I found was all kinds of stuff that I would have never remembered. I mean, here's one news report I did, 1997.
Outside the station, it is 72 degrees.
My third birthday, 1992. So I got to thinking about my not so digital video existence. In the process of doing that, I thought about all the other VHS tapes that are out there and how many of them, especially the ones that went straight to VHS, never had a chance of getting digitized. About 3,000 of these genre films, horror and slasher flicks, and exploitation movies are now housed in what might, at first blush, seem like an unlikely place.
So I think VHS is really important in terms of the creation of choice and the creation of control. These two aspects, I think, really changed American culture. People could finally make choices about what movies they wanted to see at what time.
We're missing the big football game. Relax! My VHS home video recorder is taping it right now.
Fans had so much control, in fact, that Universal Studios sued Sony. It went all the way to the Supreme Court, where it was ruled that people could indeed record movies and television shows. That's Jack Valenti, and the president of the Motion Picture Association of America, in 1986, speaking out against what seems analogous to piracy.
There is a practice called back-to-back copying that has been enlarging in this country. And that is when people go to a video store and rent a full-length movie in pre-recorded form, bring it home, and hook two VCRs together and make a full-length copy of that movie.
But anyway, let's get back up to New Haven. Why did David Gary want to buy a collection of old VHS tapes and boxes?
If you want to try to understand the cultural fears, the anxieties, the stresses of the 1980s, I think this is the type of material that some scholars might want to look at to understand. And without VHS, without this medium, this sort of ubiquitous medium, it would be very difficult to maybe understand the 80s in a holistic way. So I think the 80s really is this unique moment that allows different types of movies that don't have to live up to the profit standards of a Hollywood movie studio. They had a lot more space to talk about things that are more subversive that a Hollywood movie might not want to take on. Larry Cohen movie, The Stuff.
No, don't eat that. I saw it moving in the refrigerator.
Sort of a take on American commercialism, American consumerism. It's a movie that, it's this alien ooze that bubbles up out of the earth that, an evil capitalist company finds out about and then starts to sell to people, and it takes over their mind.
Coming soon for you, The Stuff.
A lot of sort of like, are we doing the right thing in the 1980s? This over-the-top period where you have things like the savings and loan crisis. You have all sorts of issues with the recession and jobs. So the consumerism sort of is coming through in this movie.
Now, I wasn't even born when those movies were made, and my father didn't buy a camcorder until years later. But when he did pick up a camera for my first birthday, it was so that sometime in the future, I could pop that tape into a VCR and I could relive the moments of my life that I don't have any memories of. And the size of this camcorder is laughable to me now. But the technology inside made it so that you could go right to your shelf and pick off exactly the movie that you wanted. You could watch yesterday's sporting events today. My mom could keep up with her soap operas. It laid the foundation for things like Hulu and Netflix. And while bootlegging and piracy weren't novel concepts in the 1980s, as it relates to video, VHS opened up a whole new world. VHS is responsible for the birth of entire genres of movies. And it's also responsible for this video of 5 generations of my family in this tiny little Albright, West Virginia home.
All right, everybody say goodbye. Everybody say goodbye now.
Bye. See you next generation.
Don't forget to subscribe, and we'll see you next week.
When you're